All right, so go ahead. Yeah, you were saying you started a second one?
I started editing him, and then I uploaded three more, but
Okay.
Fox Hollow, the broker, called me early this morning and said they just accepted a preemptive on it. So
Ah,
I uploaded it on Monday, and that was one of the ones from last week, but I didn't get around to uploading it till Monday, and they
okay.
already accepted a preemptive. The offers, I thought we had time because the offers weren't due till mid-December, but then Ettingham, um, the as far as the rent roll and the T12, there's a lot of stuff missing as far as to follow the formulas like that you guys point out in those videos as far as mapping the T12 and mapping the rent roll.
Yeah,
And theirs, because it's a smaller property, it's
yeah.
missing a lot of those parameters. So that was my only issue with that. So I started it. I just haven't finished it
Okay.
today.
So, I mean, on that note, that's always why I'm trying to separate those two types of properties. I'm trying to go, hey, there's a smaller property underwriting, which could be anywhere from 4 units to say 190. And then there's sort of this bigger property underwriting that's 200 to 300. The 200 to 300 almost always cleaner because the size allows for professional management, for a full staff, all those different things that you benefit from. And so underwriting becomes more direct. But with that said, the smaller properties, the opportunities that lie within there are the fact that it's probably oftentimes a mom and pop owner. A lot of times they don't have enough money for Yardy, so they put it on QuickBooks and everything's kind of a mess. And so if you can find those deals, that's I like those too, right? Those are exciting too. And that's what you're looking for in those smaller ones. So you're trying to figure out. I think you spend a lot more time underwriting them is probably the short of what I'm trying to say. And a lot of it is you're going to call up the broker, you're going to ask questions he or she's not going to know. The owner may not even know. So you kind of go into things blind. On the note of a preemptive offer, you're pretty experienced. Have you seen that happen in multifamily so far?
No, this was the first time.
So I've been the beneficiary of two different strategies for taking down or locking up multifamily, even in this market. Number one, we made a mistake once on a property where we overbid by like 7,000 a door. And that shut down the entire process. They stopped everything. They started paying attention to us. And it took us 3 weeks to work through that, where we were deciding whether we wanted it or not. We were tempted to take it at the 7,000 high. They wanted a certain asking price, and we were 7,000 a door higher than that. It's about 900 grand more than they were asking. But it kind of froze the whole process in our favor. So if you really want a property, there's times when you can go in with your LOI and just sort of slam it. And even in this market, that broker and that seller just sort of locked up everything. They said all the other offers, they said, you guys go away. We're going to talk to this group only. And they talked to us exclusively for about 3 weeks, where we were sitting around thinking about whether we wanted it or not. So that's one strategy. The second is this preemptive offer idea. So sometimes, not always, but you can talk to the broker and say, I know you guys are out shopping for bids on this, but what's the price that the seller wants to take an offer right now? And sometimes they will tell you, because it depends on the seller, right? If the seller has told the broker, I will sell at this price, and if you get an offer for that, I'll stop all this madness, because sellers don't like, the rigmarole that goes on around, for weeks on end of this whole selling of a property potentially. And different sellers are more sensitive to that than others. So you're part of what you can always do as you talk to brokers is to just ask, is there a price you guys, when you're talking to a broker and they say, well, the date for this is December, and say it's December 15, you go, wow, that gives us a lot of time. That's cool on our side because we're slower on underwriting at the moment, but that's going to change here probably in the next week or so for you. You're going to start to catch up with all these properties, and you're probably going to start doing 2 to 4 a week. You're going to start to be up with the underwriting. And with that done, then you're kind of talking to the broker going, is there a price I can offer you on an LOI that the seller is going to stop, take notice, and possibly sign with me right away? And if they're willing to talk to you about that, that means the seller's given them permission to do so. And it's kind of like, you know, your business is kind of like this already. There's a certain number and with the seller, and if you can hit that, you can take this thing off the market. So, and I worked with a group that was very aggressive like this. This group would do this on every property. And in fact, if they couldn't get the broker to say, oh, there's a preemptive price I'll take right now, they wouldn't go through the competitive process. They wouldn't even submit an LOI. They're like, why bother? Just give me the ones I can get. And I know it's ones that I need a preemptive offer. So that way I can get a signed LOI and I can move down the road. So it's a legit strategy, and keep it in mind. And if you're talking to a broker, it never hurts to ask, is there a price that the seller wants?
Yeah, I do stuff like that with single family homes, but I never thought of doing that. So like I do that, like the offer I submitted today, you know, I came in a little high because I know that's what the seller wants. And then during my inspection period, that's when I'm gonna try to wiggle them down. And but now with multifamily, the only reason I never really thought about that is because there's a lot of money that goes into those inspections and that due diligence process. And if they say no, now you're out a lot of money. That's a little scary.
Yeah, and in multifamily, that process is called retrading. In general, everybody starts to get grouchy about it. However, if you look at, say it's this 80 unit where you're looking at the documents you have and you make an offer, you know, based upon good faith, if I'm looking at your documents you supplied, here's an offer. Now, in terms of you supply real documents or whatever, now it's a real document I get and it's different. Now you have every right to retrade. And yeah, it's a higher stakes game because there's more involved, but it's and it used to be done a lot. We used to retrade on every deal. We would go in high knowing that we could fix it in the due diligence process. And nowadays it's less likely, only because the brokers are really pushing hard to go. If you're, you know, the number of deals now we're seeing where the EMD, earnest money down, going hard or non-refundable is almost 50-50. Almost half of the LOIs that brokers are asking for, they're demanding that EMD money go hard after a very short period of time. So a lot of that's just the sign of the times, but it's still an option and it's still out there.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, the preemptive price, that's an awesome one. We should go to the scorecard real quick. I forgot.
Okay.
Follow the link over the scorecard. Let's do that quickly. Put in your uploads. You got your underwriting there. Did you upload any?
Yeah. So if you go to so I got the one I did this week, and then if you go to properties in detail, then you'll see the properties.
But put your number. I don't see your number. Maybe hit enter. Maybe it's on your screen for G.
Property. So I'm sorry. This week it was 0 because I uploaded the ones.
No problem. Yeah, no problem. Just and then properties in detail. Awesome. All right, Whisper 6.2 offer due in process now. Awesome. So this is exactly the way it works, and you can imagine with 5 people on the team, this becomes essential because stuff starts to fly around back and forth. All right, so that's good. Well, can we go back to, I know we've spent an inordinate amount of time on this one property, but can we go back to that and keep talking about that a little bit more in detail before we move on? And I think what I'm going to do is, let me share my screen again for a bit. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this cap rate issue. It's a good issue, and I'll explain more about it as we go through it.
Okay.
Let's see here. All right, so we're going straight to step 10. This is the rubber meets the road step. And what I mentioned was, and I know you found it because you filled it in down here. This I call step 10A. It's the rent comparables analysis worksheet. And I know that you filled in these. You filled in the 1-1 non-renovated, and you filled in the 1-1 renovated. This is coming directly from the OM.
Yeah. So actually, what I did was, I should have explained that when I text you. The 1-1 renovated and 2-1 renovated are actually coming from properties that were more. This is a Class B property, Class B area, I feel, and they're coming more from Class A properties, newer properties that were built in like 2020, 2007, things like that. So I just put them in. So obviously they're going to command higher rent. So I put them in the renovated area to show possibly what can happen once we renovate the property.
So that's perfect. And that's part of the idea of this worksheet. You get to use your underwriting, opinion to go, I'm going to put these over in the renovated because they're newer. And there's the area there. I see you putting in the year and distance. Like that's perfect the way you're filling this out for your team members to see, right? 2007 to 2020, 2.3 miles away. That one's commanding $1.54 right there. So interesting. A 2016, 3 miles away, $1.78. And $1.36. So the way this, modeling works for the MFG underwriting template is you've got these two columns here. You've got the seller's columns of what they are currently charging in rent and what they think the market rent is. And then you've got our analysis, which comes from below in that 10A, of what do we think we can get rent-wise, and what do we think we can get rent-wise after? So before renovation, what do we think market is? Because a lot of times the seller is just not up to market yet. And then if it's renovated, what do we think it can get? Here's where, this whole thing starts to go a little awry these days. And this is part of what I'm still thinking about. I got next week coming up. And I think I've been sort of toying with changing this whole underwriting template once again, and re sort of formatting it what I want to do is move this step 10 back to the tab 1. I want this step 10 to be on tab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to have each its own step 10 for each of those tabs is what I'm thinking in my mind, and I've started to set it up as. Well, here's sort of the basic problem. First of all, that cap rate of 9% is coming from the value add model of this property as opposed to the cap rate from tab 1. So here's the cap rate from the tab 1, which is a 1 year at the beginning of the year analysis, right? Just 5.6%. Mm-hmm. As we go over here to the comprehensive, now the comprehensive tab is starting to add in all of the idea that we can get all this higher rent, both market and after renovation. And we're thinking of renovating all these units. When we look at step 11 here, we're looking at this construction schedule, and we have 100 units being upgraded in the first year. It's starting to add all that into the first year. So this cap rate is basically at the end of the first year of this 9.0, which is probably the name there. See how it's purchase cap rate? It should probably say, end of first year cap rate, just to let people know, let users know. So that's a problem in itself. I don't really like the language there because it's not a purchase cap rate. It's an end of the first year cap rate. And the reason for it is we're trying to get a basis for adjusting the cap rate at the refi and at the exit. And so we use the adjusted cap rate or the value add cap rate so that it's on an even keel with what the sale cap rate would be, if this makes any sense. Otherwise, you're kind of jumping across the cap rates from a purchase cap rate to this end cap rate, and it starts to look too dramatic. Okay, so kind of with that said, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so basically, on Prop 1 tab, the cap rate there is our starting cap rate. But then this one is after we finish the first year going into the second year. That's what we estimate to be based on these projections that I inputted into this.
Yeah. Okay.
And
if you look right here on DI, sort of some it's shown, but not explained well at all. If you look at DI 61 right here, it's showing this cap rate after this first year of construction and upgrading of those 100 units. Yep, right there. See how it's 8.9 and it's rounding it up to 9 in this one up above in that header.
Yeah.
And then if you look over here to the left, here's the one modeling the seller's numbers. This is a lot more in line with tab number 1, 5.7 there.
So if I'm sorry, if I change these numbers over on the renovation schedule, then that'll change the cap rate if I change the first year.
Yeah. Okay. And that's so back to, you know, I'm always sort of going a long-winded explanation of this only because it's so darn complicated. Back to the idea of this worksheet. Here's the basic problem with current properties right now. Go back to this BI, look at this, look at their column. They are currently renting these properties, these units at 77 cents a square foot. That's their weighted average for what they're renting right now, these 308 units, 77 cents a square foot, right? And now, if you look at what we're trying to say here, we're trying to say if we renovate these, we're going to get $1.33. Almost double.
That's a big difference. I don't think
it's a huge difference. And the problem with this is in underwriting right now, you know, in this kind of environment we're in. Now in all fairness, a lot of if we want to pay attention to where these are coming from. So let's look at the 1-1. See how this 1-1 is in here at $1.25 and $1.58. Let's go down and look at the 1-1. That's this one. 1-1 non-renovated. See the $1.25 right there?
Yeah.
And see the $1.58 over here?
Yeah.
I mean, that one's, you know, we're arguing these are real comparables. That should be right. Now the system breaks down a little. Look at this one of, see the 1-2 right here and the 1-2 renovated. We don't have any comparables in those boxes, but those are being put in for this one here, the 1-2 right there.
Oh, okay.
So that 1-2 is dropping in $1.40 and $1.50. All right. And if you look where it comes from, go back down to the worksheet there.
And that's
a blank. See the $1.40 and $1.50. Those are kind of national, like crazy averages. Maybe if you're in Dallas or something, you know, that kind of thing. And so this allows you to start to, as you're looking at that, you're like, well, I don't like this at $1.40. Even if I don't have any comparables, I might mimic, see how there's $1.25 up above. I might say, let's make this $1.25 here, 1.25, because I'm just going to start to argue as an underwriter. I can't get $1.40 out of thin air, but I have $1.25 up above from actual comparables. So I'm going to make that $1.40, right? $1.25. And I'm going to come over here and now that's higher, $1.58. But that's still craziness. $1.58, David, in renovating these 1-1s, you know, $1.58 is a lot of rent. And the problem, I'll tell you, the problem is we wrote this template back in the day when we didn't have these kind of rent swings. And now because of these rent swings, I feel like this template kind of, you know, skews the case a little. And I'm worried about, you know, just the idea of this, getting this much more rent, you know, $1.33, not bad. It's coming back a little bit, but we're going from 78 cents here to $1.33, literally maybe a 70% jump. Do we think rents are going to jump 70%? And if the hold period's 3 years, then maybe they are. I mean, Jim Stewart in this day and age, he said he's putting in, right? We talked about rent growth last week. He's putting in 6 to 8% rent growth in the pro forma, and he thinks that's conservative. In other words, it may be 15% or 20% in the next year easily, given the inflationary pressures we're feeling. Wow. So that's where these numbers start to get a little skewed. And that's where the model, in some sense, potentially starts to break down a little. And I think we have to sort of take it with a grain of salt. Interestingly enough, the cap rate going from 9 to 9.5 is still a good conservative jump on this. In other words, it's jumping up 0.5% over the hold period for the exit cap. I'm probably okay with that as an underwriter at the moment. That still seems conservative. And we're pulling 16%, but given these rent raises, man, I sure would love to see this jumping higher than just 16 or 17%. You know, I'd like to see, I'm going to raise rent 70% and only get a 17% return. I feel like, you know, what's happening is the seller is kind of taking my profits in their sale price.
Okay.
Does that make sense, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So this worksheet allows you to sort of put in all of those comparables and then manipulate them. For example, don't forget you've got this yes and no. Like, let's say I look at this one here at $1.08, maybe at this one. See the Kings at $1.34 for a 2-1 non-renovated. Maybe I decide that's too rich for my blood. I don't want to keep that in there. So I'm going to toggle this one off. I'm going to say no to this one line item. And notice how it adjusted the average per square foot rent for that 2-1. And notice how now when we go up here for the 2-1, it'll adjust that to $1.03.
Got you.
Yeah.
Brought the cap rate down a little bit.
Yeah, little bit. And then I do think, you know, we've got this construction schedule set at 100 in the first year. I don't think that's realistic. I've never been on a property where we did more than 30 in a year. I just have never seen 100 done in a year, especially the first year. So I think on the construction schedule, it might be more realistic for this one to say more like 20 in the first year and maybe 40 in the second or something like that. You better have a pretty good contractor.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true. Yeah, I guess
talking about,
I wasn't thinking about that. I was just computing numbers, trying to get it done. But I think realistically, it'll be more like 20 or 30. And then I was thinking maybe you want to keep, looking back at it. That's what I was telling myself. And then maybe not even do all of them, keep half unrenovated. So it's a value add for the next
yeah,
buyer.
yeah. Yeah, I love that meat on the bones plan of when I see properties that are mostly renovated already. You know, I'm thinking, what do you guys? You should have just done a percentage of those. But I still think you underwrite it as if you're going to do them all.
Okay.
Do some portion of them, prove the concept once you own it, and then put it up for sale. And just show that you want to show on the rent roll, as you know, when you're an asset manager, you want to show those renovated units separate on the rent roll. You're going to put an R next to them on your rent roll as a manager, and you're going to show that they're bringing $200 more per month in rent than the exact same unit that's not renovated. That's how you're setting up the property for the sale to the next syndicator who's going to buy it and raise money and keep doing the renovations and make money too. And this whole weird thing is syndicators can keep selling to each other over and over and continue to make money, and so can investors. A little bit bizarre to me, but there's kind of no end to it potentially, as long as I guess the market continues up, right?
Right. Right.
Well, so I don't, and in all fairness, David, I'm not sure we've discussed this, the way we've set up this model, being that it's adding in these changes in the first year. We've discussed sort of the weakness in the model of this and considered changing it multiple times. And if I go back and do this again, I'm still considering taking that out because it potentially is misleading. It should probably be a little bit different, and you kind of have to go through all the formulas and track them through and use the spreadsheet a while before you get sort of the conservativeness to go, I know what it's saying, but it might be overstating the case a little bit.
Okay.
Well, okay. So does that I feel like I'm not doing a very good job explaining it, but is that kind of addressing your question?
It does. I think the biggest thing, like you said, was the comp. So, I mean, next time I'll probably just go on apartment.com and things like that and check the comps. And then also on the OM, it didn't show whether they were 1-1, like 2-1, 2-2, or anything like that. It just said 2-bedroom comps, 1-bedroom comps. And
Yeah.
so, it wasn't as in detail.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, when we start to get really serious about a property, you go visit the property and you drive those 10 properties nearby or 6 nearby or 3 nearby, and you really try to map out what they're charging in rent. And that's where this worksheet really pays dividends, because you can put every single comparable in there, and your team can sit around and go, can we really get the rent raises or not, is kind of the question in your mind, especially nowadays. And the scary thing right now is you may be able to get $1.33 per square foot in rent over the next 1 to 3 years pretty easily. It's probably going to happen. It's just insanity.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that bigger question of where the heck are we headed, and how does it keep going forever?
Yeah, exactly. I wonder that too. But now,
Well, okay, go ahead.
Well, at what point? So you get a lot of deals. You're trying to do them quick. So at what point do you realize, all right, let me stop working on this one. This is a dud, and move to the next one?
So I think you're trying to accomplish several goals here. You're trying to get your 100 property underwriting certificate. And we haven't ever printed one of those, but I wish that I had enough time and I could actually print those certificates, because I think it's a big deal. Part of you is trying to do 2 to 4 of these a week and add up to 100, because over time, those 100 are going to pay dividends. You're just going to see so many underwritings that your brain is going to start to dial in on it, right? So that's one issue. Number 2, you're talking about the speed of underwriting. How fast can you do it? And then number 3, that question of how little work can I do before I decide this is, before I say next, that is a very difficult question. I think all of us are continually searching for that answer, but it's been elusive for me. I'll start to underwrite. I think that, the worst part is, like we've said, David, is, remember, we've seen different sponsors on our call, literally where our students underwrote those same properties in past, and that sponsor bought it, and it's a great deal. That's where it really starts to mess with your mind. And I don't think there is a way. You kind of have to look at every property and be able to move through it. If you could do this full underwriting, for example, in 30 minutes, you'd probably just do the full underwriting each time, right?
Yeah, 30 minutes is quick.
So I kind of think that's where we're headed. You need a better tool. I still think I know it's MFG is my template and I wrote it, but I still feel it's not good enough. And in my mind, I want it better. And I that's what I'm hoping to do on the next run. I think part of that is the tool, and part of that is just the student practicing enough to get good enough where you can sort of see. I also think you're looking to develop sort of your own sensibilities. Like when you see a wholesale house, there's probably different types of situations where your brain sort of clicks in and you go, this is one that we do really well. Does that maybe resonate?
Yeah. I mean, it's somewhat. So you're looking, when you're walking in a house, you're looking at, all right, how can I make this? How can I bring the value here? So you're looking, okay, maybe I might have to move some walls, and then okay, the footprint might be great, but the layout might be a problem. I can move some walls, and now it has a great layout. So stuff like that really works.
Yeah.
So you're always looking. It's kind of, I guess you said this before. It's kind of like an art. I know you said that about underwriting before, and that's the same thing. It's an art.
Yeah, it's like half science, half art. Well, so I think you're looking for those multifamilies where your brain goes, I love this type of situation. It fits me. I really want this property. That's the kind of thing you're trying to get to in your career, where it makes sense to you and you go, this is it. And the underwriting model can only partially get you there. I think it's this whole idea that as you're filling out the model, you're looking at, you're looking at the OM. Just there's certain feels to these properties where you go, man, I did one just like this 3 years ago and it was great, and I know this property, that kind of feeling. interesting, these kind of different styles of roof and architecture and things. And you see how people upgrade the different properties too. I've seen this kind of property upgraded different ways. And this is the Kings. I mean, they're charging, look, $147.
Mm.
Interesting, the studio though, a lot of times the smaller square footage units will be a lot higher price, because even though it's a 640 square foot unit, you can charge $1,000 for it, you know. So there's different kind of sensibilities here. A lot of times the larger units, like a 3-bedroom with a higher square foot, will bring a lot lower per square foot rent. So at some point, yeah, I think you've seen with this underwriting, I think you've gone 90% or 95% through the whole underwriting. And I think you know the model well enough. At this point, you're going to be going into those next file folders of yours. You said you worked on Eddingham a little bit.
Yeah, I started mapping everything today, so I added the railroad. Oh, one last thing I wanted to show you too. If you go back to View High Lakes, and I don't know if you noticed it, but that's what really messed me up, was the way. So if you look at the original rent roll, the way it was set up, it had like all the pet fees and all of those charges, and I just went and I cleaned up the entire rent roll where it just had the one charge. So I had to go. It took me like an hour just to go through and just pull all the charges, because you have to look closely, because some are on. You'll say, okay, this line is going to be this, but it wouldn't. Some will be on different lines. It'll be mismatched. So I had to like tediously go through all 308 units, and then I did it, and I had deleted one. It was 307 units. I said, oh crap, and I had to redo the whole thing. So, but that helped. So now I know, okay, the key is just setting myself up with everything first. Like I highlighted the vacants and things like that. And then now once I have the setup good, then the rest is easy after that. It's you just move really fast.
Okay. Interestingly enough, I was talking to Justin yesterday, Justin Weary. He claims, and there's no reason that his claim isn't true, because I know Justin in spreadsheets. He claims he's come up with a formula he uses to regenerate the rent roll into this format you've got right here, into this line by line format.
Well, I would love to learn that.
I know. So I just wrote on my list, make sure and find out. I got to pick his brain, you know. That's what we all got to do, is see how each other does this, and then use it to move on. So I'll see if I can look into that. Well, so talk to me about next steps.
Okay.
What you've got in your file folder, you've got Eddingham.
Yeah.
Fox Hollow is under contract.
Yeah.
Wedgwood Heights and Liberty Park.
Yeah, Wedgwood is I got the offer dates written somewhere on my desk. But they're both due. Liberty Park's due first week of December, I think December 8th. Wedgwood's due, I think December 15th. Only thing is Liberty is kind of looks like it's more in a rougher area. And it's in a D area. Well, it's like on the cusp of a D C area. So I don't know if that's good. I know majority of it is Section 8, and he said that they just finished the low income housing tax credit program, so you could bring everything to market rate as well too.
So you know, that's where we made most of our money, is C and D, and our experience with that is when a broker says C or C minus, trust me, it's a D. I mean, we've had brokers just, you know, they slide that scale up, and then when you get there and start driving the property in the neighborhood, that scale slides right down. And some of the best properties we did were D's in C areas, and cleaning those up were the real key to making money on those. We needed certain factors. We like to have one entryway, a fence around the entire property, which you don't want to put it in yourself. You need it there when you buy it. It's expensive, very expensive. But on some of them, we found we had fences all the way around the property, because what happens is the property becomes sort of a thoroughfare for the local neighborhood. And we went in and fixed all those wrought iron fences. There were some good 8-foot wrought iron fences. We just fixed them, put in gates. It had a single entryway. Now you can start to control that property a little bit more. And on one of those properties, we actually contracted with the police department. And I know it's their job to come in and work on the properties anyway, but those properties are a pain in their side. They're out at some of those properties, 3 times a day. So they came in and we paid them a fee. It wasn't too much. It was like 5 or 10 grand or something, sort of an extra fee for overtime. And they put extra units on. They used like night vision goggles on our property and all kinds of stuff. They made like 9 or 12 arrests in the first week, and then we evicted the rest, and it cleaned up that property very quickly. And we fixed all the fences. We sort of controlled the entryways, and that property was a 250 unit in Georgia, down by the airport there. And that was an awesome turnaround, and we sold that very quickly for a huge jump in price because we did the work of cleanup. So you just need to know the real truth about it, and then you need to look for those features. Does it have a single entryway, or does it have fencing around the whole thing? Those kind of things become valuable.
Okay.
Well, I think at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're looking at now, we've gone through sort of the model and explained a lot of its sort of shortcomings, where you're going to have to, as an underwriter, you always have to figure out those shortcomings in an underwriting model and then stay on top of them. I think you're left to sort of run it on those properties left in your folder now. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely gotta get those underwritten. Like I said when we started, I get more deals than what I can underwrite. So
no, I'm with you. It's and that's part of my job, is to keep harassing you a little bit, and saying, hey, what did you do? Where are you? And then keep going now. Well, and we are under the challenge of the timing of the year too. Next week, technically speaking, is Thursday. Thursday's Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about that too, because I know we have a call scheduled, and that's another thing too. It's been hard getting in touch with brokers. Like I've been trying to get back in touch with the broker for View High Lake, and it's been impossible. They haven't been returning my calls because I think they're on vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only on vacation, they're just getting so many calls each day. They're not returning anybody's calls. It's that whole thing of there's a lot of people calling right now. So, I mean, it's a challenge. Yeah. So next week, we canceled the Geek group meeting next week because it's a holiday weekend. Where do I go to look for that? Let me go to multifamilygeeks.com. Let me look at the schedule. Yeah, there's no Geek group meeting. I'm flexible. I think I can switch out a meeting in the evening, but how's your schedule? You're going to be, are you doing a bunch of family stuff? That's going to impact your ability to underwrite I think you're trying to underwrite 4 properties by next week or something to that effect. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, Thanksgiving will be hard for me to meet, because, with family and things like that.
Yeah, me too. I hear you.
Probably going to go over to my friend's house, so then it'll be impossible. It'll get so loud over there, it'll be impossible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But we could possibly skip next week or meet the day before. I don't know how your schedule looks on Wednesday.
Well, Wednesday before is Thanksgiving Eve. That's Wednesday evening. I'll do that. I think I can. Well, before I start saying that, let me try to look at a schedule here. Where's my calendar?
Yeah, I'm looking too. Yeah.
At the moment, and we can text each other, it's only the 2 of us, so we can be a little bit flexible in this, but I can move next week's to a day earlier tentatively, and then we can, if something changes, we can follow up with each other. Let's see, November 25.
With my wife. So The computer's so loud, my wife must hear our conversation. She just texted me, said, "You got a funeral to attend," and she's right. I got a funeral on Wednesday.
Tell Monique I said hello. Hi, Monique.
Yeah, she's right. I got a funeral I have to attend.
Well, so next week's going to be tough. What do you think over the next week you can underwrite 2 of those properties? Or do you want to say this? Do you want to say you're going to do all 4 by the next week?
That's
By
what
December 2?
Yeah, if we skip a week, then possibly I could get everything done.
Okay.
I'm
And
done.
would that be okay with you? You know, I mean, part of this is your time and my time. We're trying to organize so it's valuable for you and you keep growing, you know, is the goal here.
Absolutely. So, and then Fox Hollow, should I just delete that out of here since they already have it under contract, or?
It's up to you. You know, preemptive offers don't always go through.
That's what I was thinking as well.
I'd underwrite it.
Okay.
I mean, you're in a practice mode. These are all relevant properties. Underwrite all 4. Let's see what you see. And let's at least use it as a training module. I know you could upload others, but let's just stick with what we got. The thing about Eddingham is that's always a little bit messy. And those you kind of do what you can do. And then at some point you go, is it worth it trying to chase down the information or not? You know, and that's the hard part about those 80 units or 50 units or all those are so, they get under my skin because I know I want to buy them, but then I'm always frustrated at trying to, you know?
Yeah, because the rent roll doesn't show the square footage of each unit. It doesn't show the market rates. The T12 doesn't show, the loss to lease or their vacant. It doesn't even show their vacancy rate. I think their rent is actually after vacancy, what they put as their gross scheduled rent.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. They're not going to track loss to lease. They're not going to track any of that stuff. If you can't afford Yardi, then you're on QuickBooks, and QuickBooks for property management is a half-baked solution. You can kind of make it work, and if you're not an experienced bookkeeper on QuickBooks, then it turns into a mess, you know. So so I think those smaller properties have to be something like in your backyard, or for some reason you know the area, or you used to, live nearby, or something where you have an advantage to go, I know the seller, or, some aspect to those that I think you need to give you sort of the reason to keep going. Otherwise, it just gets too difficult. The broker doesn't know, and he'll call the owner, and the owner probably doesn't know either. And or, you start to get into other things where the owner tells you, oh, I get paid X amount of dollars in cash each month, and that's not on the books. And now that's a whole problem because verifying it is a nightmare. And I don't know, it just becomes a difficult property unless you have some sort of local insight to the property. So pursue it until your brain says, I'm not going to pursue it anymore. How about that? I put it on you to go how far you're going to go until you get tired of it.
Sounds good.
I get cranky when the documents aren't in Excel format, they're in PDF. I start to get cranky. I think that one was in PDF. Remember, you converted it. And then sometimes the conversion is pretty good, and sometimes that starts to cause problems. So there start to be these variables that creep in, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables now makes it sort of a mess, and you can't quite sort it out unless you go drive the property and you meet the owner and talk to him and start to go, I know this property, I want this one, so unless you have that sort of insight, which that gets very exciting when that finally hits, I haven't had that feeling in a long time, by the way. I love that feeling where you're just like, man, I love this property, this is a good one. I just lately just haven't felt that. I've lost that love and feeling.
About being affected here in California like me, how do you feel about as far as some smaller deals here in California? I mean, how do you feel with the laws here and stuff like that?
I'm pretty open to it. You know, I've property managed in California. I have my broker's license in California. My brother owns a fourplex in Redondo Beach, and so and we self-manage those. Um, there's a lot of opportunity still in a lot of areas, and I don't mind California. I kind of think it's what you're looking for, those things that fit you. And I would say your current business, I feel like you've been so successful in your current business, you're looking for a way to stretch those feelings into this multifamily and find a niche that's something where you go, this clicks. You're looking for that too. You're kind of looking for this edge. So I'd say California is a possibility. If you can find something in there that looks good, let's see what we can do. Let's underwrite it, or whatever the reason is why we go, this is a good one.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're probably ending early. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. And then so we're shooting for, so let's go back to the L10 and update the to-dos. Let's go down to I think you're lining out what we do on these. You take the thing that you finished and you go format, text, strike through. So you strike that out, right? And then just put your new item in. And what it does is keep like a running record.
Okay.
So I think your to-do is underwrite 4 properties in folder over next 2 weeks. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely be uploading more properties too. So
okay. So that'll be by December 2. Put December 2 in there if you got access to that. There, I'll be your cheerleader over the next 2 weeks, trying to go, okay, how far are you? What have you done so far? And try to keep moving.
And I know you told me last week, but again, what is the target parameters we're looking for to say, okay, let's submit a LOI?
Man, that is a tough question these days, I don't totally know, but I'm not happy with 17 to 18% IRR. I'm just not happy with it. I wish it were more. I feel like we just need more room in there for who knows what's going to happen, And at the same time, that's part of the reason I'm thinking, if you find something you like and I'm still too, cranky about it as a sponsor, you're going to go, let me reach out to Jim or Rob or any of those other sponsors that we've talked to already and see if they're interested too, because I think that's going to be a learning curve for you to go, what is it that Jim sees in this or doesn't see compared to what I think I see or don't see, right? I'm a little bit cranky about everything lately, and that's just part of my hang up of being older and having gone through the different downturns I've gone through.
Okay.
And I don't know, I want to apologize for that on one hand, and I want to just say I don't recognize the market right now on the other. It's just so many pressures. This inflationary pressure is crazy. The trillions of dollars potentially pumping into market. I don't know what it's going to do. I think real estate and specifically multifamily just could keep going up for the next 3 years. There's enough pressures. There's not enough, apartments out there for the people that need them. And I told you about, Neil Bawa sent out that. Did you see that email I forwarded with the Neil Bawa's plan? He is building spec units for renters.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to check it out yet, but I got the email.
But that's his response to all the pressures. I don't know what those rent for a month. They got to be a pretty penny. They got to be A class because they're just built, and they've got to be renting, I don't know, $3 to $6 grand a month.
What market is it?
He's in San Antonio with that. He's buying land. He's going to develop it, and he's going to build units for renters. and
Wow.
they're going to be specific about the options they want in the build.
Oh wow. Wow.
My
Yeah.
brain is having trouble even saying it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is
But
crazy.
that's his response to, that's a he's a syndicator, right? And this is his response to all the pressures that are going on. I'm going to go develop property. By the way, on the call tomorrow night is William Collins. And, you know, William is a single family home developer in Georgia, in Atlanta. And we built a single family home with him. His relationship is, you know, a lot like flippers. You put up the money, I do the work, and I split the profits 50-50 with you. And I love that model. And I think it might work for a 4-plex or an 8-plex or a 20-plex that he builds too. So there might be some crazy options too over the next 1 to 3 years that are not quite totally syndication, but still definitely investment plays with multifamily over the next 1 to 3 years.
I have, well, my 4-plex in Kansas City, I have an extra, I know there's enough to build another 4 or 8-plex in the back. Because the next door, they did it. They have an extra, they have 2 4-plexes on the same size lot. I have 1 4-plex. But I just thought it, you know, the price of everything, and, you know, I know how long it takes to do new construction. That's why I didn't want to get involved in new construction right now, because my only thing I'm concerned about is, I mean, yeah, if everything keeps going up for 3 years, then I'll be fine. But, you know, who knows? Things start shifting, and then I'm stuck building this, and then now I'm stuck, and I gotta wait to the next cycle.
Yep.
I don't want to do that.
I hear you. Now you're back to our whole guessing game of what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's rate it, and we'll underwrite the 4 for the next 2 weeks, and we'll deal with what we know for the moment.
All right. Give it a 10.
All right, I'm giving it a 10 too. Yeah, and that's it. We'll just keep in touch by text from over the next 2 weeks, and I wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you, Max. Happy
All
Thanksgiving.
right. Yep.
Talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you soon. Thanks, David.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.